Good morning. Good morning, all my viewers out there. Hope you're all well this morning. So it's good day. Sayonara.
Is it a nice day out there? You've been out, I
Lovely,
haven't.
lovely day.
He's out on his bike at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Lovely day.
Bottle of whiskey in hand.
Oh, yeah, if only. If only. You probably see I'm wearing the Bobby Moore Fund shirt. Well, I'm actually raising money at the moment for cancer research. I'm taking a break from raising money from prostate cancer, which I've done over the last 15 years, and raised thousands for prostate cancer through runs, cycling, acting a clown, and just me being me, really.
How do people sponsor you, Teddy?
And they do, yeah. They basically can just donate to the Bobby Moore Fund. It doesn't have to be to Teddy's Facebook page, because I'm not technical minded. So really, if you're going to donate to the Bobby Moore Cancer Fund, that's enough for me. You know, it's not about personal gain for me. It's about awareness. Check the cancer site out, because lots of good stuff. And of course, if you are a male, still protect your prostate. Even from the age of 40 now, I recommend you get a regular blood and PSA test, because, you know, baby, it's, you know, keep using it, otherwise you'll lose it, of course. So all you youngsters that do, I mean, it doesn't stop me still when I get a chance. But anyway, look, moving on.
Okay, just before we move on, I've told Teddy that when we're ready, because I can't walk anymore, I will attempt to walk the length of Lewis from Ringmer, where there's a church that John Harvard, the founder of Harvard University, was married, right across the town, down past the prison, down past our studio here, and along the farmland down to Falmer, where we will end it at the Seagulls, at the football team's home stadium.
Brighton Hove
When
Albion
we're
Stadium.
ready, the only thing is that it's probably going to take me about 3 days, and he's going to have 3 days to be able to stand by in case I fall into a ditch.
No
But that
pressure.
money can go to
Yeah.
any charity you decide. Yeah.
Exactly, no pressure. And I think all the money raised we'll put to the Bobby Moore Cancer Fund, if we may.
Right, you are. I'm all for that. Yeah.
But keep your eyes peeled for that, viewers. Keep your eyes peeled for that. Now
you can move on.
Right. Now, before we start Keith off on the next story in his venture, I'm just going to give you an idea of where we got to. Now, this was a young man at school who went through, and he was average at everything. And come the day when he was leaving, his head teacher, his headmaster said, "Well, Miss Keith, you are Mr. Average. So you're average at everything you do." And this, to a young Keith Hayes, as the first story, it set about a burning ambition within him to not be Mr. Average, but to be Mr. Extraordinary Average, which over the years, certainly in his first period, which was about 28, 29, which we covered, he worked his way through and he got a scholarship in Canada, went on to set up a rugby club and became a spokesman for a rugby team, which led to a break for him at the equivalent of Canada's BBC, which was CBC, where he started his broadcasting career. And from there, he progressed on into CBC and then went on in UFUN radio. And we left him just when he got his break back in England at a West Midlands station called BR MB, and that's where we left him. And he was a few months into the job where he had to choose a sports presenter, where he met the And. So that's where we left it, Mr. Keith.
That's right, the And. Just before we get to the And, which is a fascinating story in itself, and will touch many people in the Midlands still, the reason that I hopped back from Canada was my final job was as head of news at a radio station called CJOR. Now, many people of our age will remember the broadcaster Bernard Braden. And Bernie had worked at CJOR, which is home Canadian station, before he came over here. And he came looking for people, British, with experience to join his team to bid for the London General License, which we didn't get. But as a result, Bernie picked up the phone to the people at BRMB, who were also putting their license together, and said, I think I've got the ideal candidate for you. Do you want to take a look at him? And they very kindly said yes. And I ended up as head of news at BRMB and the first hard-hitting phone-in man in the country. Get off the line! I don't want to hear that rubbish. So that's where we started.
It's a shame you haven't got any of those calls left anywhere. Really.
Well, there are some, I think, in BRMB's archives. BRMB has still got their archives, but to get them out, I would imagine, would cost a small fortune now, because they're on those great big reels, you know.
Cool, yeah. All in them old films on Talking Pictures. Used to see all those reels coming out of cinemas and projectionists. Yeah, sorry, Keith.
No, so anyway, we pick up the story just prior to BRMB going on the air, because I, as the head of news, was looking for a team of people. And most people were reluctant to leave the BBC because they didn't believe that commercial radio was going to work in this country. So finding qualified people was very difficult. But I did have a pretty good track record in training. So I looked for raw talent as well. Through the door one day came a gentleman, and by that time I was in my 30s, who was a couple of years older than me, little trimmed Van Dyke beard. And he said, "Here now, kid, I want to be your sports editor." So I said, "What's your name?" "Tony," he said. "Well, Tony," I said, "what's your experience?" He said, "Mr. Hayes." It's the only time I ever called him Mr. Hayes. He was very disrespectful after that.
Of course, Mr. Hayes, he said, yeah. They don't pronounce their H's up in that part
the black part of the black country. No,
exactly.
He said, "The only on-air experience I've got is my hand." I said, "What do you mean, my hand?" He said, "Well," he said, "I write out the sports scores for the BBC on a Saturday," and he said, I crawl up through the floor and I put them in front of the presenter, and then I get offside." He said, "But one day the cameraman was too fast in drawing back." He said, "So he got me hand." So here he was, CV. He was very keen on cycling, Tony was. And he had got experience in writing out news stories, sports stories, but he'd never been in any position of authority, and he'd never appeared on the air because nobody would hire him because of his black country accent. Now, I've been renowned throughout my life, and it's got me into a lot of trouble and got me fired from a couple of places because I always wanted to do things differently. And this young man intrigued me. He was bright, he was clever, he was full of personality. What not to like, except his accent. Well, it didn't offend me because I'd just been through several years beating down the Canadians into accepting somebody with a British accent on their radio station. So I was quite willing to take the chance. So I said, all right, tell me what you do with this. And he gave very satisfactory answers. And I said, well, you're on. If you want to be my sports editor, you're on. All right, Achille, he said.
Yeah.
I'll see you on whatever the date was. So here we were, BRMB, ready to go. Did our first newscast. I did my first hard-hitting phone-in program, and we were away, ready for the first Saturday, in which Tony was to be the host. Leading up to that, we'd had several meetings with a whole lot of people on how we were going to be different to BBC. And that was the key. We had to be different to the BBC. If we weren't different, why would they listen to us? They'd got everything at their switch. So I said to Tony, listen, Tony, you'll do part phone-in, part reporting, but you're going to go with sports from 1 o'clock, when people are getting ready to have their lunch and go off to the football match, until 7 o'clock at night when you've got all the scores in, and sports is more or less ended for the day. It'll never work, actually, he said. It'll never work. Tony, do it. And this was where the resilience that was Tony was so great, because he looked at me and said, all right, kid. Off he went. No more prompting. So with some trepidation, I listened in. And he did a brilliant program. Absolutely brilliant. He got a team of people around him, people that he knew who had been doing sort of, phone-in. The way that you get people down at the dripping pan, they phone in the results.
Yeah.
And they say, the centre forward was brilliant.
Yeah.
The goalkeeper was rotten. And that's it.
Yeah.
People like that. He brought out reporters in them. He created his whole team. He interviewed, I think it was Aston Villa, because he became famous for his phrases. The whole Aston Villa team are wearing frilly knickers. He said. So,
did they ever run out in them?
Eh?
Did they ever run out in them?
Well, strangely enough, because of a family connection, which I won't bother to go into now, I've been a fan of, and my brother has been a fan of Aston Villa all our lives, all our memory lives. I can remember going to Villa Park with my father to when I was about 4 or 5 or something like that. The Frilly Nickel Brigade is always in my adult memory until about this last 6 or 7 years.
Really?
When they really started to burgeon.
Oh yeah.
There was one golden period in 1980, wasn't there, when they won the European Cup?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
83, something like that.
Yeah.
But apart from that, they've been a very languid team. But now, they just become European champions, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're doing very well now. So I invite the whole of the Villa team to take off their frilly knickers. And then I'm sorry to say that Tony passed away 2 or 3 years ago. But they can send them to Tony Butler. And he would have laughed his head off. Yeah, believe me. Yeah, he was a superb guy.
He's a legend. Yeah. He's a legend in the West Midlands area.
Well, you know what helped him to fame, don't you? Is Jasper Carrot, the comedian. When Jasper heard him.
Yeah.
And Jasper was exactly the same from the Black Country and with the same accent.
Yeah.
So the two of them got along like a house on fire. Yeah. And Jasper used to send Tony up, and Tony would send Jasper up. So the two of them had a wonderful time. Just all based on their accents. The very things that everybody in this country has said, oh, we're not hiring Butler. Oh, we're not hiring people with accents. So Tony also opened up. And I suppose in some small way I did. opened up a whole new employment stream in this industry, no matter what you sounded like. Because I showed it didn't matter, accent didn't matter. It was whether you were any good and whether you got that X factor for radio or television. That's
how you
right,
say it, what you say.
Yeah. So that was I mean, I'm always very proud of being able to create employment. I mean, okay, I've been to the top, as you well know, and I've been to the bottom, and that has never been that important to me. What's been important to me is, am I doing a good job for the community? Am I doing something for society? And with Tony, not only did I open up a new broadcast element for people who didn't sound really serious, but also a stream of young people who are willing to get their fingers a bit dirty and get involved in the sort of journalism that Tony did, which became very, very popular with the public very, very quickly.
Yeah, be different.
Yeah. In fact, one day, just to follow up on the Tony story, is I was here in Lewis, and I may say this would be 20 years later than when we started the RMB. And somebody I knew from the Lewis Arms, which is one of our local pubs, came roaring out and said, "Hey, come on in. You're in the Times sports column." I said, "What the hell? What have I done now? I've broken some record, walking backwards or something." And here was an interview in the Times, not the Sunday Times, the Times, with their sports correspondent, with Tony Butler. And one of the questions, of course, always with the curler is, how do you get started? And Butler was quoted as saying, "I met this madman, Keith Hayes." Yeah. I could just hear him say it. But you know, Terry, if I may say so, and it may bring a blush to your face, I'm always successful with people who have got spirit, character, appeal to the public and so on, which is exactly what you do. You've done virtually no broadcasting. You've done a lot of DJ work, but no broadcasting up until this. And here you are, rapidly becoming a people's favourite. And I seem to have a sixth sense from being able to pick people out who've got talent, but also charisma, appeal, you know. So Flattery. Here we go. That's why I'm on Teddy's people.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
But if you don't have a good time in this industry with the people you like and respect and admire, then you'll end up saying, "I don't want to go to work this morning." Yeah.
And that is why you're still on as my senior advisor. In fact, my only advisor. I don't need anybody else, really. What with the motivation that you still kick me up the arse every now and again. And it's noted, but not felt. But not because I got a big arse.
But anyway, that's the Tony Butler story, and I think it's rather a nice story.
That is actually.
And perhaps I will pen it once again because it's an inspiring story, I think, for younger people. Because getting into this industry now is very difficult, Kelly, as you well know.
Yeah.
And young people, I'm afraid, and you can look at me and say, "Listen to the old fart. He doesn't understand the present circumstances." Well, perhaps I don't. But what I do know is there are lots of young people who might flourish in this industry who are sitting at home reading a comic or watching television without trying because they have what? No experience. Well, go out and get the experience.
Can I just add to that, Keith?
Yeah.
Over the next 12 months, Mirador Television, the South and Beyond, will be going into Lewis to the local college, the media department, and opening up opportunities to media. Like, because I do this, I took this on 5 months ago because Keith nagged me into actually taking me on doing this. So hence I'm a lot more comfortable in the role now than I was 5 months ago. But my point is that because it's all voluntary, to get, I hope any youngsters, college, I know there are a few, because I spoke to a few already over the last few months that I know are viewing this in certain places in Brighton, Hove and Lewis. Basically, it's that if you watch this story and prepared to start from scratch and giving your time to station, not all your time, but some of your free time where you might be out with your mates and you really get into media like this gentleman did, you know, from a young age. He moved off to Canada, as I spoke earlier, and to do it. And you know what? Opportunities now in colleges are so much greater than they were even now, even more now than 10 years ago. So any youngsters watching this, I ask you to watch this part and the next part where we were taking him into his into Keith's 60s, and there'll be another part after that where we just have a laugh, me and him, because we always have a laugh anyway. So if you're watching, students, please don't think it's a waste of time, and tell your friends. And I will, over the next 12 months, I will be going down to the local college in Lewis, the county market town of Sussex. A brilliant place, full of creative people. And really, I'm hoping to meet more of youngsters that have some creative talent. So anyway, we'll go back to Keith's story now. So thank you, Keith.
Now, okay, let me just say, later on in my story, you will hear about a lady called Melissa Conti.
Yeah.
Melissa still broadcasts on Mirador, on my blog, on his station. She reached the heights. She was the anchor for morning and nightly business reports in the States, which went coast to coast on 800 different television stations. Got 8 to 10 million people per program, viewers per program. And Melissa started off her career working for a local radio station for 4 years. And how much did she take in? Nothing. She worked for 4 years for free, but it was paid off because she got to the top. I worked for free for the first year in my career, way back in the 1960s.
During the war.
Paid off. yeah, during the war. So forget the jingle of the tills for a little while. Do it as a voluntary service, because when your CV is looked at by an editor nowadays, whether you're talking about local radio, mainstream radio, BBC, ITV, or one of the other broadcasters that have now sprouted up, Mirador, the first thing they'll look at is how much experience. And if you've got blank on that, they may not reject you totally, but you won't be very high in the pecking order if it's for one position or 2 positions or something. Yeah. Anybody with experience will immediately go on to the short list. Yeah. So remember, build up that experience. And we're offering, Teddy particularly is offering the opportunity for you to get your feet wet, to dip your fingers into the pool. And I will make an offer to Teddy that come September, when everybody thinks in terms of going back to work, I will hold a couple of workshops for people with absolutely no experience whatsoever. And I don't care whether you're 15 or 500. You'll be welcome to these workshops.
Who's that?
And I'll give you a few hints and tips on how to approach a microphone, how to write a news story, how to look at the routine that you'll be expected to go through. I can't help you with the editing, I'm afraid, because I'm not a very good editor myself. Perhaps you'll find an editor to come in on one of the sessions, so that when you go for that first job, not only can you say, yes, I've got a college certificate, or not, I mean, just an apprenticeship, but I've got this experience. And that's what an editor will look for.
Exactly.
So he's doing a marvellous job, and I will help him in that if you want.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, BRMB.
BRMB. Okay.
And the lunch.
Yes. Well, now, I always say I just moved on. But in fact, I was invited to resign. The reason being is that I believe heavily in freedom of speech and so on. And one of the major shareholders of BRMB was Birmingham City Council, which was very, very Labour in those days.
Big brother.
Yes, I mean, the leader had a wonderful name, Stanley Yap, Y-A-P-P.
He never came on.
No, he never came on. Although one of the union people, because in those days, the union was very, very heavy. And Birmingham car industry was famous for people going into work on a Friday night, walking in through the front door, putting their time card in, walking out through the back door, and not coming back until the end of their shift. They just go down to the local pub. So I said to this union leader, "Are you going to sort that out?" And he looked at me. It looks could have killed. I would have been dead on the spot. But the local media, they got so used to the situation, they never thought to ask, is anybody going to sort this out? Well, of course, we weren't too far away from Margaret Thatcher taking over.
Still goes on. They're just getting over a bin strike for 18 months, aren't they?
Yes, I know. It's a very Labour-oriented council.
Still.
But I took on the leader one day, and I think we were talking about the IRA, and a threat came in, and you always had, even today they do, they had a 5 or 7 second lag. So what I'm saying now wouldn't go out on the air for 5 or 7 seconds to give me a chance to cut it off. But the producer on the system in the early days would be the one to cut it off. So this guy said, "Is that Keith Hayes?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "We're going to shoot you right through the forehead." And I had to keep this guy talking because the producer had dropped a pencil or something and was busy groping around on the floor and not even listening to the conversation. While this guy publicly was saying he was going to kill me.
At least you did it on the air.
Yeah. Publicly, yeah, they loved that. Anyway, I think the leader of the council disagreed with the fact that I really went to town on the IRA after that abomination on the face of the earth, little knowing that some 2 months or 3 months later I was going to end up in Belfast.
To be sure.
Yeah. Well, actually, another character that I met is a guy called Frank Delaney, well known in Ireland, but also on the BBC because he made a History of Ireland series. And dear old Frank was a bit like Tony Butler. He was a wild, free spirit. And so anyway, I was working with Frank, and he used to come up to Belfast to do some broadcasting and then go back to Dublin on the weekend. And after a couple of weeks, I got to know Frank a bit. And I said, "Frank, you can check out where I sit, whether this threat that I received in Birmingham is still real." And he said, "I'll check with my sources in Dublin." So he came back on the Monday with a great big grin on his face. He said, "Keith," because they can't pronounce TH here in Ireland. "Keith," he said, "do you want the good news or the bad news?" I said, "Whichever way around you want." He said, "Well, the bad news is, yes, you're still on the list." He said, "The good news is you're number 1,000. So we got on. But it was that show and me taking on the leader of Birmingham City Council, because that was before the Birmingham bombings. So they all thought the IRA were wonderful freedom fighters against the British government and so on.
Until it happens on their doorstep.
Yeah, that's right. Then they changed their tune.
Yeah.
But it was a bit late for me. I'd already been shown the door. But anyway, I went down to friends at the BBC. And one of those, he wasn't exactly a friend, but he was a supporter. There's a guy called Phil Sidey. Now, the name Phil Sidey won't resonate with anybody, I don't think, anymore. No. And actually, Phil ended up much the same as me, being shown at the door. But it was a bit later for him, because he, once again, was an innovator. BBC Pebble Mill, which I understand has now been torn down,
yes,
in those days, had a great big atrium. And Phil said, I don't know who the architects were that designed studios, in the 50s and 60s, but they keep on building these great big atriums, which is wasted space for broadcasters. Think of what we could have in there. We have 10 studios and so on. So he said, he said to everybody sitting around, what we're going to do is we're going to have this new show. He said, we're going to have interviews in the lobby, bands, the whole thing is going to turn into an extra studio. And of course, all the traditionalists said, oh, boss, come on. People coming into work and this is where people check in to visit and so on. He said, yeah, and what they can do is they can wave at whoever is famous or the bands and so on as they go through. If you ever watched Pebble Mill at 1, which was a famous program, TV program, that's how it started and that's how it carried on, and it was immediately popular. Nobody had ever done this before.
Daytime TV, I would imagine, as well.
But anyway, Phil met me in the corridor after I'd popped down to BBC from BRMB and said, oh, I've been looking for you, Keith. Would you go to Northern Ireland? I said, well, Phil. He said, well, make up your mind because you've got to go tomorrow.
No pressure.
And so I went home and said to my wife, I'm sorry, dear, I'm going to Ulster tomorrow. Right. I had a wonderful wife who said, okay, dear.
See you when I see you.
Yeah, that's right. So I packed a bag, went down to Birmingham Airport, climbed on board what in those days was a proper aircraft to Belfast. And away I went into the next stage of my life.
Which was for whom?
That was where I was working with BBC Northern Ireland, Belfast.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So
radio?
In radio to begin with. And of course, in those days, what you did was you started in radio with any organisation that was usual and moved on. So, yes, I was starting in radio. How are we doing for time, Teddy?
Plenty of time. Mate.
Plenty of time?
Oh, we'll load, yeah.
Okay.
I've got it in there.
So shall I launch into my next?
Well, that's the idea, Keith. Don't keep my viewers waiting in suspense, please.
But can I urge you, anybody who is fond of looking back at old presenters, the name of Only Me and Tony Butler has gone into history. And it may only be, I mean, if you say it in the Midlands still today, people say, oh, yes, Tony Butler. I was talking to somebody the other day, and so they said, oh, Tony Butler. And do look him up, because he was not only a legend, but he was a true talent and a true broadcaster. And anybody who wants to model their career on Tony won't go far wrong.
They won't. No, I know from spent a lot of time in my job at the time DJing in the Midlands, and regularly used to listen to BRMB on a Saturday afternoon myself, and of course commentary in Warwickshire, which was BBC commentary in Warwickshire.
Oh, right, yes.
I became a Coventry City fan up there, so I'm well aware of Tony Butler. unique style.
Incidentally, before we leave the Midlands, can I just say that when I was in Canada, and the North American Professional Soccer League, which is now huge, of course, was fledgling in those days, is my boyhood heroes were people like Peter McParland of Aston Villa, who's the guy that broke Frank Troutman's neck. Do you remember?
Yeah, I
in
do.
that famous cup final?
Yeah.
And they were the people that
In a tackle, wasn't it, or something?
Yeah.
Tackle.
He went in to try and kick the ball out of Troutman's hands.
Yeah.
And everybody thought he deliberately
took his head off.
Yeah. Parkland turned out to be a very nice guy because I got to know him. And Vic Crow and several of the Aston Villa players of those guys exported to the Vancouver Royals, as did Bobby Robson.
Yes, indeed. Oh, yeah. Right.
So I was lucky in being a sports reporter overseas as well as a news editor. I got to meet some of the greats that have been boyhood heroes, because I watched that, I think, what was it, 54 final or something like that.
Yeah.
As a boy. And here they were, my heroes, walking into the front door. Right, back to Northern Ireland. This was 1975, at the height of the Troubles.
Yeah.
They were, the British Army were losing all sorts of soldiers. The buildings were being blown up, farms being turned into torches. It was a very, very nervous time. A very nervous time. And I arrived in Belfast with my little bag that I managed to pack overnight, not knowing a soul. No welcoming committee. Go out and how do you get into Belfast from the airport? Oh, you take a bus, sir. It's waiting outside. So then I got into the bus, trundled into town, looking at all these blown up buildings and what had become a very hard way of life, because this war of attrition, which the provisional IRA had launched, and that is to try and make life so uncomfortable that the civilian population will turn on their rulers. That was the idea.
Unionists on the other side.
Sorry?
The Unionists on one side and the Catholics on the other.
Yes, that's right.
How did you get on with segregation then when you first went there?
It was difficult, but segregation amongst the professional classes didn't exist.
Well, no, I would imagine it did.
Well,
but when you're at the basic level on the ground, for the working, the average working class family, which I would imagine was particularly hard, especially because I would imagine growing up in a Catholic and an Irish community when I was younger myself, that you formed friendships with people of both sides of the fence. So especially if for children, I would imagine it was particularly difficult when 1 minute they're playing with their mates and the next minute they're on the other side of the divide.
Well, it is very difficult. It is also difficult ridding some of the older population of their prejudices. So they pass those on to the children. And I remember that, on your side of the fence, entertainment, I knew a lady singer and her family. She was a very, very good singer. And she was a prod. So I visited 2 or 3 times. And on July the 12th, isn't it? Yes, July the 12th.
Yeah.
Is their big day.
It is.
And her children
this week, actually. They still celebrate. It was this week.
This week.
It's celebrated, I think, Monday or Tuesday, and it was covered by GB News. They actually extensively covered it.
Ah.
So it still goes on now.
Yes. I mean, and the bands deliberately march through Catholic areas and support themselves.
And the orange parades. But again, history is great if you learn about history as a youngster.
Yes.
You know, because it integrates your personality and makes you realise that not everything is black and white.
No, that's right. But you've still got to have a bit of an open mind.
You have, of course, yeah.
And I was at this singer's house during the daytime, I may say, 1/12, and the kids had been dancing around the bonfire and throwing fireworks and so on.
Well, they would with the singer.
And I said, you know, Tina, that was her name. Tina, why do you permit your children to go to these things? And she said, oh, love, she said, they're only having a bit of fun.
Exactly.
And that's the way the adults are. The kids having a bit of fun.
Yeah.
Whereas the kids were being indoctrinated into, you know, hate the Catholics, hate the Tays.
I always think we kids, myself, that love does, when you're a child, love does come if you're in the right family atmosphere. And I know from growing up with Catholics and Protestants, not really being religious myself, how much always love comes through, just in my opinion. That's just my opinion, viewers. Because having lived it during the 60s and 70s myself growing up, so important, you know?
Oh, God, stability is very...
It is. Good manners and civility was common upbringing back then.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, carry on, Keith.
Right, well, this was the scene that I was walking into, and you asked what the divide was like. Well, I got lost once in the Falls Road, and I had to drive my trousers out by the time I actually got out of there. Because there was a real block between the two communities, because they were living like that before the trouble. A peace line, they called it, but it was anything but a peace line. It was dividing two warring factions. And I slowly got used to where I could go and where I couldn't go, and what I could say and what I couldn't say. And to be quite honest with you, I was as worried about the unionist community, in other words, the pro-Brit, as I was about the Catholics, pro-Irish. It didn't seem to say, I mean, you could, if you were a sensible, middle of the road person, you couldn't say anything sensible.
Well, the unionists were full of hotheads itself.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it wasn't just one side. It never is.
On the contrary, the unionists could be as bad as or worse than the provos.
I think there was mercy killings and stuff going on the unionist side as well as the Catholic.
That's right. Anyway, it was a potpourri of violence and so on. Before I get involved in where I went in a broadcast sense, over the my very first introduction to Belfast, it wasn't actually the first. I'd been there from Canada once before, but just for a limited period. But living amongst the natives, as it were. In those days, all television and radio stations had their own club, with a bar and so on, which they opened up at lunchtime and in the evening and so on for employees. So I was there for 3 or 4 days, and I guess the people in the newsroom liked me and said, there's a party Saturday night in the club, why don't you come? So I said, yeah, okay, okay. So I went and had a few drinks and was enjoying the chat. And this very, very lovely, charming lady, a little older than me, but nonetheless lovely, came and asked if I would like to dance. So I said, yeah, of course. By the time a few... So I came back to the group, and there was a big grin on all their faces. And my colleague said, guess who you just danced with? And I said, who? He said, the intelligence officer of the West Belfast IRA Brigade.
There you go, you said. There you go.
I don't know whether that marked with her life or what, but
could have been worse. It could have been a tranny.
But but partly after I'd been there for a couple of years, I hadn't planned to be there for a couple of years, but I got to know a lady from an advertising agency And she realised from my background that I was a gold mine when it came to writing radio commercials and that sort of thing. And so I had a secondary business, if you like, of writing these things. And this lady, I eventually found out, was the liaison between the government and the loyalists who got this lady. She was a top Republican,
yeah,
and she became a spy. And my lady from the advertising agency was the go-between. I think they called her Auntie Maud or something whenever they were on the phone. And she would, I mean, a very risky thing. She would go and meet this lady and pass on the messages and so on and so
So
forth.
when you say she was a spy who for?
She was a spy for the Brits, for the government.
Really?
But her husband, I don't know that I'm risking anybody by saying this anymore. It was a top medical man. Let me say that. So she was really up in Belfast society, and very well connected. She knew what was going on, and the reason that she turned into a spy was because she was a fairly attractive lady. The provost had asked her to be part of the team that. Do you remember there were some 15-year-old Scottish soldiers?
Yeah.
Changed the
Yes.
British law about who
Yeah.
could go to Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
Found stacked up in her. She was asked to be part of the team that would intrigue these soldiers into the party
Oh,
before the gunman appears. Bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
And she said that so sickened her as to what they were doing. That's when she turned.
that's what you
Yeah, yeah. So you met all sorts of people and got to know all sorts of things.
You would in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
I've never been, but it's a place that's still actually that I'd like to visit, just to just because I love Ireland. I've been myself, southern, but the Northern Ireland for me is, I think, certainly richer in history than Southern Ireland.
Yes. Well, in some ways you're right. But while I was writing these things, I was asked to write some radio commercials for an evangelistic group. And I said, well, you can't get them on. It's against the law. Never mind, write them anyway. So what I wrote was, Jesus isn't just a swear word. He is the word, right? And so the lady came to me and said, oh, they love these. And I said, well, you won't get them on, Audrey. Yeah, that's it. Well, I'm going to try, she said. So she tried and failed.
And this is
advertising it. This is the spy lady.
Yeah,
the manager, the spy manager, if you like.
Yeah. Okay.
So she said, well, they want me to turn them into posters. Is that okay with you? And I said, yeah, it's fine. So around Belfast, all these things went up. It was, Jesus isn't just a swear word. And in the Protestant Telegraph, which was the Reverend Ian Paisley's newspaper, there was a big headline. Did you know, question mark, that the defamatory and sacrilegious headlines on the posters was written by a well-known BBC producer. He ripped into me left, right, and centre. But behind the scenes,
with your name quoted,
they never quoted my name. Yes, yeah, they wouldn't risk a lawsuit. Yes, who? But I would quite often go to some of the offbeat restaurants where Paisley would go to. He'd come in through the door, and he would see me, and he would bow, and I would bow back, and we go to our respective tables.
All right, so you were bigger than Jesus, then. Only they didn't know who you were.
Well, there was a song that came out.
I have to put that on your repertoire.
Yeah. There's a song that came out. You may have played as a DJ. I've been talking to Jesus, and I know I'm right. I've been talking to Jesus, and he knows I'm right. I've been talking to Jesus, and I've done so all my life. Yeah.
I'll have to look that
Oh,
one up.
it was a heady period, believe me.
Yeah.
But Paisley had got a sense of humour. He just hid it when he was being.
And so is Jesus, I would imagine, if he's up there.
Oh, absolutely.
You know.
But anyway, that's just a little aside from day one, I think.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
But my first tasks in the Belfast, well, it wasn't the newsroom, it was the current affairs department. And some very, very nice people. A guy called Robin Harris and Dan Gilbert. And they were very kind to me. They had me for lunch and took me out, showed me the countryside and so on.
Irish hospitality.
Absolutely. But the first real task we had was an election. And they said, Keith, I know you don't know much about what's going on here, but will you be the coordinating producer for this? You know, we've got reporters all over the place. One of them was Fermanagh, very Catholic, very pro terrorist county. And
what, pro IRA?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's very sensitive. And I kept contact with each of these people and decided when they should go on the air and when they shouldn't. And went on and on and on. And there was one polling station in the deep part of Fermanagh that was taking its time. They wanted to make sure everybody got the vote and so on and so forth. And this lady came on. She was absolutely knackered. She'd been at it all day. And I had to keep her talking and keep her interested and so on and so forth.
Keep her awake.
Yeah. And later, I think it was Robin Harris, who was the executive producer, said, Keith, you did a marvellous job. And keeping everybody going, especially XXX. XXX was Gloria Hunniford.
Oh, Gloria Hunniford, yeah.
Who was, in those days, just a reporter. And so I said, well, you know, I enjoyed it because I'm a political animal sort of thing. And then the lady herself came and thanked me. And I was immediately struck by her voice. Because Gloria was also a singer. And it's deep, real broadcasting voice. When women were trying very hard to break into broadcasting, and people like me were saying, hey, listen, they are good, but you don't want to listen to somebody like this all day. Okay, I was biased. We were all biased in those days. You know, I'm not going to apologize for what I was, because I'm a different person now. Indeed, you will be in 50 years' time.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it would be a surprise to me anyway.
But some of the young people, 18 and 19, that are watching.
I'll take it though.
Yeah, they will get some of the biases and dogma of today, and they will find that in 30 years' time, everything has changed, and you've got to go with the flow or challenge it or whatever. But anyway, in those days,
That's
a high-pitched lady's voice is not acceptable on radio and television.
This is a conversation for general stuff after the interview.
That's right. That's right.
Just out of interest, when you said, where did they actually put, one thing that I want to know is, when you say they presumably supplied you accommodation?
Yes, they did.
And so where did they actually... Where was the accommodation? Was it in the centre or was it on the outskirts? Or
it was right next door to the university, Queen's University, Belfast. So basically, pretty much in the heart of the city, and it was a place called Camera House. And I met some real characters there because all visitors from the BBC were put in there. The food was very good. The rooms were neat and tidy. It was a nice place to be. I mean, Frank Delaney was in there with me. A couple of guys from London. BBC,
so it was all London. Fella broadcasters,
more
office staff. Yeah, I just wanted to find out.
The food was just excellent.
Yeah.
And the thing about Camera House was, it was supposedly reasonably secure. And one young guy woke up one morning and he left his window open because it was so hot.
Yeah.
And if he'd have sat up in the middle of the night, he had a bullet square in the middle of his forehead. They figured that there was a battle between a couple of terrorist sides, Unionists and the IRA. Somebody had fired a high-powered rifle, and as luck would have it, it had sailed right across the city, going in between houses and so on, so forth, without hitting anything, into the window, smash into the wall above his head. I mean, those are the sort of things that you had to get used to in a war zone. You only think about somebody coming up to you and saying, hey, did you want me to shoot you or don't you? It's not like that at all. There are all sorts of other things.
Yeah.
I mean, the number of times I was in a pub with my journalistic people, and I mean, initially, when I was with, say, other people, ordinary pubs, the coppers would come in and say, bomb threat, all out, and everybody would rush out through the front door. When I got to know the journalistic pubs, is the coppers would come in and say the same thing. Everybody would hold their glass and their pee off coppers. We've heard it all before. But it was a very nervous and tense situation. Yeah. So I've forgotten where I was now. But anyway, going back into the broadcast environment.
Were you a producer?
I was a producer. I mean, they started you off that way because the producer announcer everybody wanted. So there was a pecking order, and you didn't come in through the front door. Although you did. Very early on in that stage is I met a young man who was on the way up and was he was producing, but he was being weaned because they recognised that he got a special talent, and that was the name escapes me at the moment, but terribly the guy who did that University Challenge.
Bamber Gascoigne.
No, the one after him.
Oh, that was another newscaster.
Yes,
wasn't it?
It was.
That was.
It'll come back to me in a minute. I'm sorry. I start conversations like this, and I know who I'm talking about, and then I forget the bloody name. But but he's quite famous, and he is now famous because, like me, he's got Parkinson's, and he spearheads the Parkinson's movement publicly.
And part of the organisation you belong to.
Well, I don't belong to it. I mean, I subscribe to it because they're very helpful. But I try not to get involved. Although I do write stories for them from time to time.
And of course, you will be on Mirador television, hopefully, with your Parkinson's show.
Yes, indeed.
As and when you decide.
And trying to raise the awareness.
Of course.
Because actually, I had the doctor in yesterday because I can't get out to the surgery anymore. And she came in. She's a charming doctor, Dr. Vallet. And if you ever find that you're going to be seen by Dr. Vallet, you hang on to her. She is a cracker.
Yeah,
she is very good.
She was checking your mental state of mind for taking me on one.
Absolutely. What she said? Oh, that reprobate.
Are you sure? Yeah, give you an examination.
Yeah. I said, doctor, he is taking the pills that you prescribed. Oh dear. We're having fun this morning, aren't we?
We are.
And we haven't even got around to Gloria Hunniford yet.
No, Gloria Hunniford now. Legendary broadcast.
Yeah. Well, I was on an initial contract of 3 months with the BBC, and it was coming to an end. And it was about March or April, something like that. And the senior producer, or director actually, who was once again his name escaped me just for a moment, came and said, look, we like what you're doing, and so could we tempt you to sign a contract for another year? And I talked to my wife, so I said yes. And I went back and they said, well, what we want you to do is over the summer, will you devise a program with all your experience? Because what we find is that Radio 3, which used to fill the summers in Northern Ireland, isn't going to do it this year. We've got to do it ourselves. And we've given all our producers the summer off. So I said, yeah, okay. And then I had a flash. And I said, the only thing is, remember that I'm a broadcaster from overseas and so on and so forth, but perhaps slightly different principles. I said, I need a good voice. And I said, you know, that lady that was doing the election with me, she's got a super voice, Gloria Hunniford. If you can give me her for the summer, I'll stay. And they produced Gloria. We started our show. It went under the name Summer Call for the first 2 weeks. And as I got to know her, we looked at one another and said, nobody's going to get interested in something called Summer Call. So I said, tell you what, your name is Honey. Let's call it A Taste of Honey, Hunni. And I must say, it was so genius. And I went to the deputy, because the bloke that hired me for the summer had taken his own holidays. It was a little bit of trepidation, because he wasn't known as being a very far-reaching man. And he said, oh, quite clever, let's go ahead. So there it started, it was born, A Taste of Honey. Actually, the BBC hated me so much by the time I left. They did a book on A Taste of Honey, and they missed out the first 2 years, so they didn't have to mention my name.
A bit like the Jesus advert.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I couldn't put a foot right once I made them a mark and I got them famous.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So
they wouldn't have cared if nobody had been listening.
Exactly. So from your headmaster saying that you'll always be average, and when you come out of the BBC in Northern Ireland, no one still knew your name.
Yeah, that's right. Although I must confess,
apart from fellow presenters and of course the BBC, who
well, but I will say this, that we were left alone enough to come up with some great ideas. So Gloria and I used to hide off to the pub after her show. Ended at 12, and we would sit and we would discuss what we should do next. And out of one of those, I took my hat off, and she said, "Oh, I've got a hairdresser coming in to cut your hair on air, you know, and you could chat to him about stars." Oh, that was great. And she said, "If only you were bald." And I said, "Well, do you think the makeup department can make me bald?" "Oh, we're going to ask them," she said. And from then on, I was known as Old Baldy. So, although the name Keith Hayes didn't resonate, but Old Baldy most certainly did. And in fact, we pulled a fast one on the hairdresser, because he came in and he'd been doing it for 3 or 4 weeks. And by that time, I'd got my bald things on. So we put on a wig and sat there, and I was ready to do the interview with him, and suddenly Gloria whipped off the wig. And John, his name is John Anderson.
Hair raising experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway,
yeah, I'll tell you, that's why I back you.
Anyway, this is by then you were what, in your late 30s?
Yeah, this would have been about 1975, 76.
You were born
in 1939.
39.
Yeah, let's say 1940 to make it easier.
Yeah.
40, 50, 60, yeah, about 35.
Lovely. Well, so mid-30s, this is where you're going to leave it.
Right, okay.
And then I'm hoping from the next part of it that you tell us about how you got involved with Ulster TV.
Yes,
next,
right you are.
Okay, but it's been a delight as ever. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Terry. Yeah, and
again,
you're really doing a great job in carrying on Mirador television. And I have to say it, we laughed and giggled our way through this morning, and it's been great fun.
Well, I hope my viewers enjoyed listening to us as much as we enjoyed it. But this is a man, all those youngsters watching, this is what can happen if you've got an interest in broadcasting. Get involved either with Mirador or a local station, a YouTube station near you, and just take these lessons that Keith's giving out as an introduction to the ups and downs, because there's always the two sides, and you have to go where the dice rolls, unfortunately, but you always come back, because if you learn something from every experience, in no matter what your chosen profession, in whatever field, whether it's football, sport, or broadcasting or media, then everything's a lesson which resonates throughout your life as you get older, and you can think back, because those experiences, good and bad, are the ones that mold people into individuals, and you need to be an individual when you're in media, as I say. So thank you very much to Keith, and this is all part of Extraordinary Life Stories with Mirador. This is the second one, and also coming up I have the first one with Sheila, a 90-year-old veteran who's had a hell of a life, and she's just posting her latest excerpt, so from the age of 50. So thank you very much, and I will see you about 9:30. And now I'm just going to have a quick chat on air with Keith about some of the stuff we talked about this morning.
You don't want us to go, or you do want us to go?
Oh, we'll go on for another 10 minutes.
Oh, sure.
All right?
Yeah.
So, you're talking about, basically, it's character, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
And
I mean, you've got to be prepared to push against the ropes, because television and radio is very formulaic. So they try to get you do this, and that happens on a piece of paper, or nowadays electronically. So your mind tends to sort of say, these are the parameters. They're not at all. I mean, Kelly is breaking them by broadcasting, and has, ever since he started, out of a non-studio type television operation.
exactly.
Oh, some people, the sound should be pure, the picture should be pure. Yeah. And what sort of content? Putting people to sleep.
Yeah, unscripted, as all Mirador presenters are. I'm sure this man could write a script, but then really, you need a character in yourself to say, bugger the script. And even if the genius that Keith Hayes has wrote it, I would still probably bin it and say, well, thanks, Keith, thanks for the effort, but use it as a guideline.
Yeah, it's funny. You say the right things. I couldn't sleep last night, so I started to look through some of my old scribblings, and it went back and back and back, and I found the script which I wrote, the first episode of The Bloody Past of a Tiny Town, which was our documentary, and which you can still find on YouTube and on the web, on various other sites. And here was the script, the written script of that very first chapter, the episode of the first documentary. So you say, can he write an episode? I read it. It wasn't bad, mate.
But would I have kept to it? That's the question. And yeah, it's funny with what you learn through life as well. And if you've had a life of diversity, it always helps.
Yeah.
Especially in media, because you've got more experiences, I think, to draw upon in yourself.
That's right. Well, I mean, point the finger and say, I'm not listening to the old fart, by all means. I don't mind. I don't insult easily. But, even at 18 or 17, if you came to one of my classes, if Teddy decides to set them up, you've done nothing, you're rotten at school, and so on. If you come and relate some of the experiences you've got, even if it's only going out onto the downs to collect firewood and looking at the plants or whatever. That is a start. Coming in and say, I lie in my room and I watch television and I read comics isn't a start. Only you can get start the experience march. And do that. Do that. And you may think, oh, this is very ordinary. Nothing is ordinary. It is. In Yorkshire, they have a saying: "Is there's nought as daft as folk."
It's true.
And that's where the stories come from the daft folk. So what Teddy is saying here is get out there and get some experience, whatever it may be. Run for charity, play marbles, right?
They still play marbles.
Hey, do they still play marbles? I don't know if they don't start a marbles club.
Conkers,
absolutely, yeah. We got plenty of conkers around here.
Yeah.
All you got to do is to go outside Waitrose and
they're all bonkers.
And the floor is full of conkers. Yeah. There are so many things that you can do. Just start to think about it, because that will be your path to being a good broadcaster. And if you want the experience, I'll give you the experience. I can't give you the jobs anymore. That's more his line. But I can't give you the jobs anymore, but I can give you the broadcast experience and broadcast know-how. So it doesn't matter whether you came out of school with nothing on your record academically. You can say, I've got this experience in broadcasting, and I'm not going to sign off anybody who doesn't work hard at it and isn't any good, but I'll give you the chance.
Yeah, I've never even passed the 11 plus, and never bothered with any exams in school after that, because I was busy selling records in a market stall. So, for me, didn't really matter, people said, well, I'm going to technical college. I say, whoopee-doo, and all this, and could have joined the army, but again, the army sergeant came round to sign me up. I said, no, I've changed my mind. I'm DJing now. And that was at 16 or 17 when I started. And he said, what do you mean DJing? I said, well, mobile disco. And really? And my dad said, what are you doing? He said, my dad said, you'll never be doing that when you're older. And here I am, sort of still doing it at a young 70. The Peter Pan of DJs. But you know what? Again, it's just what you decide to do. And if I'm in a technical college and someone says, well, I've just read a comic, I say, well, tell us about the comic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't be shy. Don't think you'll be laughed at by you tell us about the comic and what attracts you to the comic and why you subscribe to the comic. I said, that will be a star.
Actually, I won't name him because I was no permission to do so, but there is a young man, the son of a friend of mine, but I would call him a friend as well, because the family is a remarkable family, who has kicked off his career, doing very nicely, thank you, by working for the Beano.
Really? There you go. There you go. They would class themselves as journalists, wouldn't they?
Oh, yes, indeed.
Exactly. Right, anyway, I've got to wrap this up to move on to the lovely Sheila. So we will continue this, I don't know. Anyway, I'll let you know the day before.
Yeah. And watch out on this programme for any information on any training courses or colleges or whatever that we may devise between us. Okay?
Oh, yes. We've been working on it for come the autumn.
Okay. Toodle pip.
Sorry?
Toodle pip.
Toodle pip. Good. Right, go and